Pratana,
Yes, ma'am.
what happened, ma?
Ma'am, there's a technical issue. We haven't started streaming yet, so that's what we're trying to do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good evening to one and all present here. We, the first years from the Department of Biotechnology, present to you the second installment of our webinar series, which is Mental Health During Lockdown. I would first like to introduce to you the members of the organizing team for this event. We have Karen Prathana, Shruti Ramesh, Darshana Dhanashekar, and myself, Pratna Isaac, as compares, and Dishit Rajput, Deepak IAS, and Bharat Kumar on the technical side. Now, I would like to introduce you to the topic we are to view today, which is mental health during lockdown. For starters, what is mental health? It is essentially a person's condition with regard to their psychological and emotional well being. Like physical health, mental health is capable of deteriorating and improving. These changes are seen and felt by all of us present here and may feel more obvious in a stage like ours, college life. When we first join college, we experience the challenges of new peers, new teachers, a new social life, a different and higher league of studies, and maybe even a new place. As we advance in this college life as we know it, we tend to either succumb to or rise above the pressures we face, all while bearing the mental strain that they bring. Now, this mental strain affects our mental health greatly, and while extremely important to address, it is often neglected. Now, according to a study published in the Asian Journal of Psychiatry, 37.7%, 13.1%, and 2.4% of the students were suffering from moderate, severe, and extremely severe depression in Indian universities. The findings of the study emphasized the need for immediate mental health support services for about 15.6% of the students who are either suffering from severe or extremely severe depression at given university. In 2015, the NCRB presented data which reflected 8,934 cases of student suicide. In the 5 years leading to that, 39,775 students committed suicide in India. As of January 2020, it has been reported that around 28 student lives are lost every day due to failing mental health. Now, I don't want to scare you with all these facts. Instead, I want to make the importance of dealing with mental health known. Today, you and I are in our homes because of quarantine or lockdown, shielding ourselves from the deadly pandemic that is the coronavirus. In India alone, we have over 3 lakh active cases, more than 6 lakh recovered cases, and around 25,000 deaths. The situation isn't getting any easier with issues like the state politics, Assam floods, and a longer list of things that are both personal and general to us all. While we have all the time we could have asked for at home, pressure and fear levels increase in our minds, coupled with the longing to go out of our houses. Somewhere along the way, we may have felt the need to deal with the effects these issues have on us. How is the question that our speaker today will help us answer. Dr. Sheila Clements is an empowering and passionate counselor with over 2 decades of experience in the United States and in India. She has a master's degree from the University of Mumbai and a counseling degree from Asbury Theological Seminary, Kentucky. She also has a PhD in psychology from IIT Bombay. Having served as a consultant clinical psychologist at Mumbai's Hiranandani Hospital for 14 years, Dr. Clements is now working full-time in private practice. I'd like to thank her for joining us this evening, and without further ado, before handing over the platform to her, I would like to tell the participants that they can reach out personally to the speaker for counseling or any queries of any kind through an email that we will be providing in the feedback form that will be provided as soon as the talk gets over. I'd like to hand over the platform to you, Dr. Sheila Clements. Hang on a second. Doctor, you are on mute.
Thank you. Thank you, Pratna. And a very good evening to the management, staff, students, and guests. Thank you for the invitation to be with you today. And as we address the topic of mental health during the current pandemic, let's begin by viewing how the World Health Organization describes mental health. May I have the first slide, please?
According to World Health Organization, mental health is more than the absence of mental disorders. Mental health is an integral part of health. Indeed, there is no health without mental health. Mental health is determined by a range of socio-economic, biological, and environmental factors.
Thank you, Karen. Mental health is more than the absence of mental disorders. And may I have the next slide, please, Karen?
Mental health is a state of well-being in which an individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community.
That's right. Thank you, Karen. So, mental health refers to cognitive, behavioral, and emotional well being. It involves a person's thoughts, actions, feelings, emotions, and mood. And we all experience times when we are sad or worried or anxious, elated, confident, carefree, often in the same week or the same day itself. And these are normal ups and downs that are faced by everyone in life. However, when these feelings persist over time and they intervene with our normal duties and our normal daily function, then you need to pay attention to your mental health, because mental health can affect daily living relationships and physical health. May I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So you see that the factors that can contribute to mental health disruptions include abuse, and abuse can be physical, psychological, verbal, or sexual, and even experiencing domestic violence is abuse. Then you have bullying and threats, and cyberbullying is a big thing now, which can cause mental harm. You have toxic relationships which are very harmful, or low grades, and the feelings that occur when you don't meet your own expectations or the expectations of others. And then there's self-concept, low levels of confidence and self-esteem, and excessive concern about what others think about you. Physical health can contribute. Physical ill health can cause mental harm, and you have to pay attention to that as well. Then there are stages of life and related issues. Growing older, for example, senior citizens can be worried about what's going to happen in the future. How will I manage? I'm getting weaker. I cannot earn money. Okay, and that can affect. Also, teenagers and young people who are now looking for jobs can, in that stage of life, wonder what's going to happen with my future. Then there's grief, death of a loved one, a breakup, parents divorcing. Again, if there's a lack of strong social support, if you lack that support system, it can lead to problems in mental health, because that is very vital to coping. Then traumatic events such as the current pandemic we are currently experiencing. So now let's narrow it down to the current situation we're facing. How does this current pandemic we are facing affect us? And what does it mean to you? Most of you are teenagers or are in your early 20s. How will you respond? How will you cope with the ongoing events? And to cover this, can I see the next slide, please? Thank you. So as we see, some of the mental health dangers are substance abuse, excessive use of the internet. These mess with sleep patterns. Let's look at substance abuse for a moment. Many go to alcohol or some other drug abuse when they are very concerned or very stressed. I remember when I was at Hiranandani, a young man coming in saying, I feel there are spiders crawling under my skin. And he was so distraught. Now, you know that is one of the side effects of cocaine. But that substance abuse is usually used to temper down one's emotions, to feel good for a short while again, but it's an unhealthy means of coping. Then there's increased anxiety about the health of self or the health of our loved ones. There's excessive fear. For instance, now what would that be? That would be the loss of job, one's future, further education, fear of unemployment, fear that this current situation may never change or it may get worse. And there's worry and rumination. Worry to a certain extent is normal, but when you ruminate, that means when that's all that's keeping on going in your mind, it becomes very unhealthy. In fact, there was a study done by Dr. Gottman. He was studying marital couples, and he took them away and he tested their blood, took blood pressure, etc. And then he led them to tables where the couples were given a topic which would cause them to fight with one another. This happened over several days. Their blood was recorded. And then they found that those who ruminated, those who didn't forgive, kept on and on thinking about it, their cortisol levels went high, which was very harmful for them. And those were also the couples which divorced after a period of time. So excessive rumination is bad. Then there's excessive sadness because of the pain and the suffering that's going on in the world, which we largely cannot help with. There's increased fatigue or lethargy. For teenagers, it's It's natural to want to sleep more. That's how the body is at this stage of life. But then if it increases way beyond that, if there's too much fatigue, if there's too much lethargy, you need to pay attention. Loneliness due to a lack of meeting, face to face social interaction, there is loneliness that has crept in, boredom at being locked up at home and having nowhere to go. There's frustration and there's anger at not being able to do anything to change the situation. You're locked in, not meeting friends. You have boundless energy at this time. And we are made to socialize, we are gregarious. But here you are stuck at home with social media, but that's not really the real life, isn't it? And so, what do? Sometimes there are unhealthy ways of expressing our feelings. We either act out, okay, by acts of aggression or violence, abusive language, fighting, or we turn it inward and we cut off from others, equally dangerous, cut off from others. In extreme cases, you cut yourself to help feel the pain that is so strong within, but you cannot express, or it leads to suicidal ideation. So these are some. Now let's look at some strategies for coping and thriving. Can we see the next slide, please? Thank you. We'll get back to that. You know, to a large extent, we have lived a charmed life. We have not experienced, as some people in previous generations, the horrors of a world war, the horrors of partition, the horrors of a plague, where large numbers have died. The future was unknown, nothing was certain, but people did survive. And we are here to testify of that. Okay, as teenagers, you may not have seen much of that at all. You would not have heard about it, maybe. And in fact, you have seen a schedule that has been followed, a routine that has been followed. You might have seen your elder brothers and sisters sit for exams, follow a plan, get a job, get married, start families. And then suddenly we see that everything is taken out of control. And suddenly we have to move from just living to surviving. Our boundaries have been changed for us. We cannot push back those boundaries. You are stuck at home under house arrest. And that is what we need to be doing in order to be healthy and in order to keep others healthy. Again, you'll find that the pandemic has affected different people in the same family in different ways. Some can cope and some cannot. Some take it in their stride, while others simply find it difficult to cope. And that's because of personality traits that we have. One of the reasons is that genetically we have personality traits which takes us in these directions. So now, what do? We formulate and find coping skills to deal with these experiences, right? So to many of it may seem that everything is out of control, but that, let me tell you, is a perspective and not a fact. The truth is, you still have a choice. You can choose your response to the pandemic. You can choose to thrive. You can choose to be active and not passive. And you can ask yourself in the midst of this situation, what is it that I do have control over? Let's look at some of these areas where you are in control, and let's develop some strategies to coping and thriving, which will then enhance your mental health. One of them is cultivate a healthy lifestyle. How do we do that? You can set up goals. Setting a goal is not very difficult. Doing it is. So set goals that can be achieved, achievable goals. Okay? And when you set that, then write it down. Tell somebody, I've set this goal, keep me accountable. And then celebrate the small successes with them. Oh, I kept it for 5 days. Very good. Let's celebrate. Make a daily schedule. Set a routine for the day and get into a daily rhythm. This really helps when you're feeling overwhelmed. You have a routine that you have to follow regardless of whether you're going to college or whether you're sitting at home. Physical activity. We have to stay active because mental health and physical health go hand in hand. One balances the other and one affects the other. And when you exercise, what happens is that the happy hormones are released in your body, the endorphins are released in your body, and you actually tend to feel happy. Right now, you could call a friend and you could work out together. You could watch a YouTube video, you could watch Zumba or any other form of exercise, or you could even make a group and say, hey, let's do this as a group. So that way you encourage one another and you start to feeling better. Next is avoid feeding fear. Just avoid these things that feed fear. For example, you watch for the quantity and the quality of what you are viewing. Limit the news. Be careful of what you read. Be careful of what you're listening to. Get credible news from a trusted source. Then again, there's time for healthy nutrition now. Earlier, you would have had to get up, run to college, eat whatever is available, come back, study. Now, you can formulate and follow a healthy meal plan. Drink plenty of water, plenty of fruit juices, get healthy. And in Britain, it's seen now, research shows that a lot of the young people are baking. So perhaps you could bake, you could cook. We have a variety of dishes in India, far more than any other nation, I think. So start doing that, but eat healthy. Limit, this one's going to be difficult, guys. Limit the use of social media. Note, I said limit, not continuous use. Limit it. Don't go off it completely. Limit it. Let me give you what studies have shown here. Studies have linked the use of social media to depression, anxiety, poorer sleep quality, lower self-esteem, inattention, and hyperactivity, often in teens and adolescents. Okay, and a newly published study in the Journal of Social and Clinical Psychology concludes that this is recent, that there is in fact a causal link between the use of social media and negative effects on well-being, primarily depression and loneliness. For 3 weeks, the experimental group had their social media use reduced to 30 minutes a day. 10 minutes on Facebook, 10 on Instagram, and 10 on Snapchat. The groups that used less social media had better health outcomes. There was a decline in levels of anxiety and FOMO, that is fear of missing out. So limit your social media. It's difficult, especially at a time like this. But if you limit it, what happens? You get to stay connected with others, with family, with friends. You get to make phone calls, which previously you wouldn't have had time to because you were so involved in media or YouTube. Sometimes it just shuts out the botheration of thoughts, unpleasant thoughts, isn't it? But if you reduce it and you choose these healthy options of behavior, you'll find that you are feeling better yourself, more mentally healthy. Call up old friends, share happy events, share recipes, play games online. There's a group that I know that meets every week. And before they get into their discussion, they play games. Some of those games are simple, like say the Queen of Sheba, where the Queen of Sheba wants a red sock. So everybody runs out and gets that red sock. What are they doing? Their endorphins are being released as they do this without they even realizing it. And suddenly they're feeling happier, they're feeling better, they're feeling together. And let's practice healthy expressions of emotion. Learn how to express your emotions in a healthy manner. We spoke about the unhealthy manner a little while ago. So you speak to a friend, such as writing, drawing. Speak to a friend, do things as writing, drawing, painting, singing, playing an instrument, dancing. These are the way. I remember a friend of mine, when she was doing her PhD, she said, you know what? She was in a hostel. She said, when you're doing that, you get so drained and your mind gets so clogged at times. And it's easy to just go down. She said, I would go to the restroom and I would literally dance to music there. And she would come out feeling so much better. And that was one healthy way. of expressing her feelings. Cultivate self-awareness. What is self-awareness? Self-awareness is a psychological state in which one becomes the focus of oneself's attention. Okay, it involves being aware of different aspects of the self, including your traits, which you can't change, but you can, to an extent, get over. It will take work. You can do it. Behaviors and feelings. And here I'm asking you to be self-aware of your body right now. Be aware of your body, the tightness in your muscles. That's a great giveaway to how you're feeling. Often you don't realize. Be aware that feelings of fear, doubt, anxiety, sadness are normal during a pandemic, like we said earlier. But when they come, acknowledge them and set them aside. You can even set aside a time for worrying. When the worry is incessant, just say, okay, fine, I'm going to worry from 6 to 6:10. That's my time, not now. Now I'm going to focus on what's in my routine. Okay. What I would like to do now is a relaxation exercise. And when I do that, I want you to remember it, practice it. The main thing is practice. Okay. So just get into a relaxed position currently, as relaxed as you can possibly be. Depends on where you are. And I'm going to ask you to clench your toes and release. Clench your whole foot, both feet, and release. You'll find your breathing gets slower. Clench your calves, hold it, and release. Clench your thighs, hold it, and release. Clench your stomach, abdomen, hips, hold it, and release. Clench your chest. You can't really, but as much as you can. Clench it together, hold it, release. Clench your fists, hold it, release. Clench your shoulders, hold it, release. Neck, hold it, and release. Your face, hold it, and release. Think about clenching your eyes, hold it, and release. Forehead, hold, release. Top of your head, hold it, and release. What I've done with you is an exercise at a very fast pace for lack of time. But if you practice this regularly, then at the time of anxiety, it will just come normally. And you'll find that immediately you are losing that tension from your body. Okay? The next thing we cultivate is calmness. Practice calming yourself, self-soothing. Learn to recognize anxiety and take control calmly. One very good exercise for this is a breathing exercise, which we will do in a moment. You can blog, you can keep a journal. All these things calm one down. Painting, things that we mentioned earlier, painting. Now I'm going to ask you to do a deep breathing exercise. Please sit up straight or stand up if you can. Put your hand on your stomach and breathe in. Hold it. Breathe out through your mouth. Once more, and this time I'm going to count as you breathe out. Breathe in. Hold it. Breathe out. 1, 2, 3. Remember one very important fact. When you breathe in, why am I asking you to put your hand on your stomach? Because when you breathe in, your stomach should go out. That fills up lungs, that from everything right up. Okay, so breathe in, breathe out. 1, 2, 3. Again, for lack of time, I'm going to stop this exercise here. But I want you to practice this on a regular basis, maybe 3 times a day. And when you're breathing out, you should be able to finally count up to 10. So go, breathe out, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 10. If you practice this, then when you're in a tense situation, you can just tell yourself deep breathing, and automatically you'll find that you're deep breathing, and automatically you'll find that you are resting. Some other things you can do is calming music. It really works. When I was 14 years old, I remember our house had a veranda, and I was inside the house, and through the window I could see that a dog and a cat had somehow come in, not mine, come in there, and they were set to fight. The cat had all the hackles raised, and I was sitting there with my guitar, a young girl, and I was thinking, what do I do? And I said, okay, let me just keep playing. So I played music, just strummed and sang a very peaceful song. And would you believe it? After a while, both the cat and the dog settled down and walked away. Now there is research to prove this, that music therapy calms you. Music can calm you. But at that time there wasn't, at least I didn't know of it. But I saw that it actually works. Another thing you can do is meditate on a positive or meaningful verse, either from your scripture or from internet. You can get some really good quotes that you can meditate on, which will calm you. For me, I remember when the pandemic broke out and there was just such a great degree of stress all over, uncertainty, not knowing what's going to happen. All we knew was we had to be locked in, which was a very good thing. And because it provided safety, didn't it? So at that time, I remember the verse that came to me immediately was, the Lord is my shepherd and I shall not want. What does it mean? That God's going to take care, regardless of what happens. He's going to take care. And it immediately calmed me down. So you go to the internet, you'll find a lot of verses or a lot of sayings of wisdom that will generally calm you down at times of great stress. Another way to cultivate calmness is to accept situations that cannot change. And there's a very famous prayer by a person called Niebuhr, Reinhold Niebuhr, which is used extensively for Alcoholics Anonymous. Any of those addictions, they use this. And can we have the next slide, please? Let me read it out to you. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Now let's look at cultivating an attitude of gratitude. There's a song which goes, count your many blessings, name them one by one, and it will surprise you what the Lord has done. That means you count your blessings and you say, oh my goodness, I am so blessed. Much more than so many others. Maybe I can be a blessing to others. Let's look at gratitude. Marty Seligman is a positive psychologist, and he offers what is called a gratitude exercise, which I'm going to do with you right now. Close your eyes and bring to your mind the face of someone who maybe years ago, maybe recently, did or said something that changed your life for the better. Go ahead and think. What did this person say or do that made your life better? Now I would ask you, how does that make you feel? It made you feel good, isn't it? So if that person is alive, write and tell them if you haven't already. If the person has passed on, write it anyway. I remember on Mother's Day writing about my mother, how much I had received from her, how blessed I was. It was a letter of gratitude. It wasn't published on Facebook or anything like that, but I just wrote it and I kept it, and it made me feel so thankful, and my heart was filled with gratitude. It really elevates your mood permanently, not a short-term thing. And I remember when I was counseling, this person had been involved in a very, very, very traumatic incident. And the person was one who did not have a strong social support at all, because I asked, is there anyone that you can talk to? And they said no. So I said, is there anyone who has ever been kind to you? And this person said, oh yes, she was gorgeous. So when she said she was gorgeous, I immediately thought of, maybe a girlfriend or someone like that. And then he went on to say, she was my grandmother. And every time I met her, she made me feel so good because she was kind to me. I love her. And immediately his stress levels began to drop down. And look at the word he used for this old lady, gorgeous. So that lady was actually gorgeous in his eyes. So practice an attitude of gratitude. It will be very, very helpful, especially in these days. Let me give you statistics. The same person, he conducted a study where he asked people to think of 3 good things that happen each day over the 6 months of the study. And when they recorded it, they found out that the subjects had higher levels of gratitude, happiness, and less depression over the 6 months of study. That means if they had higher levels of gratitude, and they had higher levels of happiness, and they had less depression. Why? Because they thought of 3 things they were thankful for each day. So go ahead and do that. I hope you're taking notes, because if you do these things, I can guarantee you that you will feel better. There are neural pathways that are in our mind. There's plasticity, which we didn't know earlier, which we know now, that of course our brain has pathways through which our thoughts travel. And sometimes when we are thinking negative thoughts continually, then those pathways deepen. But then that can be changed by continuously making a habit of thinking positive thoughts. So this experiment that I just spoke about is one of those ways. If you do that, you will find that your brain automatically will move towards positivity instead of negativity. Be kind to yourself. As a people, most of us are generally critical of ourselves, some more than others. Some are less, but some are very, very critical of themselves. They want everything to be done perfectly, and if they are not, they will punish themselves with criticism. I remember so often when I counsel, there will be people who are suffering and they are so hard on themselves. And I say to them, what would you tell a friend of yours who's going through all the stressors that you're going through and still managing to survive? What would you tell them? And they say, sheepishly, well, I would tell them, you're doing a good job. I said, then why don't you tell it to yourself? And they'll be, yeah. I said, no, go ahead, tell it to yourselves that you're doing a good job. And then they say, okay, I'm doing a good job considering all the surrounding events. So be kind to yourself. That is very important. Okay, don't keep criticizing yourself. Practice self-care. Now, this is very important. I want you to listen carefully. Listen and share. Listen to others and share how you are feeling with people you can trust. At your age, you would probably go to a friend, and that's fine. But if you find that you cannot be helped by your friend, your feelings worsen and you feel hopeless, then speak to a trusted adult. Okay? And definitely, if the feelings persist, seek professional help. Do not be afraid of the stigma that's attached. Okay? Some people have a stigma about seeing a counselor or a psychiatrist, but we would not hesitate to go to a doctor if we are physically unwell. Why should we hesitate when we are mentally hurt to a degree that we are becoming unwell? So don't hesitate to see a doctor. Don't hesitate to see a counselor, a psychiatrist. This is very, very important. Next one. Cultivate healthy thinking. Now, we are moving into the cognitive here. I just want to briefly share about 3 areas, the first of which is resilience. The American Psychological Association says that psychologists define resilience as the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress, such as family and relation problems, serious health problems, or workplace and financial stresses. Now, what is resilience? We just heard. What does it involve? It involves bouncing back from these difficult experiences. So, for us, it would involve bouncing back from the pandemic and the lockdown we are currently undergoing. The coping strategies I've spoken about today will help to build great resilience in you. It will also enable personal growth. And it will take practice. You have to practice what you hear today. That can be your goal, to become healthier mentally. Right? That can be your goal. It will take practice. And remember, change is not linear. Like today, I'm feeling like this and I'm going to go up because I'm going to be practicing. No, you start practicing, and then you'll fall a little bit, fall back. Don't be critical. Say, that's all right. Come on, let's go up. If a child is trying to walk, you're not going to shout at that child and say, oh, you're so useless. You're going to say, no, my darling, get up. Start again. That's how you should be with yourself. So you start, you might fall, spread, pick yourself up, keep going. And that's how we go to the top. Okay? That's practice. And it's like building a muscle. Some of you might be doing some sort of bodybuilding, I don't know. But during this time is a good time to start. What happens? Initially, very low weights. Connected, initially, low stresses. Later on, you can handle more and more because you have become mentally stronger, because you're continuously practicing, you're continuously working out. Okay? Dr. Lucy Home was preparing for her PhD and she was doing research on resilience. In the middle of that, as she was gathering her research, her daughter, 12-year-old daughter, went out for a car ride with 2 other friends. And she heard the tragic news that there was an accident and all 3 children died. She had to set aside her research for a while and come to terms. And she found 3 strategies to help her. This is what she said. Resilient first. Resilient people know that bad things happen to good people. They know that bad things happen to good people. I remember a friend of mine, maybe 20 years ago, she was much older and she had a 20-year-old daughter, and her daughter suddenly developed brain tumor. And I remember the agony because they had to put a shunt in the brain which would remove the excess liquid time and time again, and finally the child died. And I remember it was so traumatic to just watch, but my friend said, she was so peaceful. She said, I don't ask why me. I think, why not me? Why should only somebody else be suffering? And so resilient people know that bad things happen to good people and you don't ask, why me? Secondly, resilient people, listen carefully, resilient people don't lose what they have because of what they have lost. So this lady had lost a precious child. You can imagine her grief. She grieved, but then later she picked up and finished her PhD and went on to be a researcher. Okay? So people tend to remember negatives much more than positives. In fact, if you get a single negative said about you, it would take about 6 to 8 positives to negate that negative. That's how much we go towards negativity. So resilient people choose where to put their attention. So now that we know this, so okay, fine, a negative thing has been said. I'm not going to wait for 6 positive things to be said to me. I'm going to get rid of that negative. I'm going to check it. Check it first. Is it true? If it's true, I'll change. If it's not, I'm going to just set it aside. That's how you should think. Thirdly, resilient people ask, is what I'm doing helping me? So whatever behavior you may be using to cope with the stress, ask yourself, is this behavior harming me or is it helping me? This question puts you in the driver's seat. It gives you some level of control over the decision making. Because you say, if it's harming me, let me change. And if I cannot change, then let me seek help. Okay? So that's another aspect of cultivating healthy thinking. Now we go to a cognitive model. Dr. Albert Ellis developed the ABC model. What is the ABC model? He suggested that our emotional responses and consequences are a result of our beliefs. What do we believe? And he developed this model, which is A is an activating event, B is the belief, and C is the consequence. Let's take an example. For example, you're sitting doing your work. It could be studying, it could be working, whatever it is. You're in an office or in a room doing that. Somebody you don't know just enters into the room and says, you are doing such a terrible job right now. I'm so ashamed of you. I cannot believe it. You're really a loser. So that was the activating event. That was the A. B is the belief. Now, what are you going to believe? That is going to determine your consequence. If you believe, yes, I really am a very, very bad student, or I'm very bad at this job that I do, and this person is right, otherwise how would this person have come and told me? What's going to happen to you? What's the consequence going to be? You're going to feel down, dejected. You're not going to feel like doing your work, certainly. And that's going to make matters even worse, isn't it? But if you believe differently, if you believe, no, I'm confident that what I'm doing is my best, then what are you going to answer? You're going to say, well, thank you for your opinion. That's just an opinion. It's not the truth. That's not a fact. And now you may leave because I have to continue with my work. And you're just going to say, what's the consequence? You're fine. You're going to continue with your work. So remember this A, B, C, activating event, belief, and consequence. Furthermore, check your automatic beliefs. Suppose you're feeling really bad about something, and automatic thoughts are so quick that you cannot catch them. You're just left with the feeling. Suddenly you'll be feeling bad. Go back and say, wait, what was I thinking just a little while ago? And you'll find that you were thinking an automatic thought that was negative. So your thought will affect your feeling, and your feeling will bring about physical sensations, and it will affect your mood. This has been researched and it's true. So catch those automatic thoughts. And if you've ever felt overwhelmed, I encourage you to just take a moment. If you feel that, oh, I just can't handle this, this is too much for me, I am just a nobody in this big world, just take a moment, okay? And think. I encourage you to think about this space that we are in, this earth suspended in space. Inside there's fire, covered by earth. There's a large amount of water that sticks to the earth and it doesn't fall off thanks to gravity. Okay? There's ice too. And in certain parts of this mass of land, beautiful mountains, oceans. And then remember that this earth is just a speck in this expanding universe. But as far as we know, this is the only planet, tiny as it is, that can sustain life. It holds you. Remember further that you are not merely one of many. You have fingerprints that are uniquely yours. Even identical twins have different fingerprints. You have eyes that are uniquely yours. You don't share it with anyone else. Every iris and every eye is unique. You have a DNA that's uniquely yours, that you don't share with anyone else. You're unique, you're valuable, and regardless of what you've experienced or are experiencing, you are very, very valuable. Remember this always. And finally, we come to attitude. The Business Dictionary defines attitude as a tendency to respond positively or negatively towards a certain idea, object, person, or situation. An attitude influences an individual's choice of action and responses to challenges, incentives, and rewards. Now, I just want to close with this. Viktor E. Frankl, he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. He was in a concentration camp where the 6 million Jews died. I don't know if you're aware of that, but it did happen. These were people who were educated, they were wealthy, and they were just banded together and taken, and many of them, 6 million, destroyed. But they were put in concentration camps, treated very, very severely for no reason that we know of. And what happened was, many of them went into depression even after they were rescued. Many did survive, one of whom was Viktor Frankl. And what he said was, everything can be taken away from a man except one thing, the last of the human freedoms. And what is that? To choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. So they can take away anything. A stress can take away anything. A stressor can take away anything except your attitude. You get to choose how you are going to react to it. So when we're not able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. That's what he said, Viktor Frankl. And can we have the next slide, please? I can't see it, but is it on?
It's on.
All right. I would like for all of us, this is what was read right in the beginning, and I would like for all of us to recap by reading it together. Let's go. 1, 2, 3. Mental health is a state of well-being in which an individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, and even other stressors as we talked about, can work productively, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. Thank you for listening. I trust that this has been a good learning experience for you, and you will endeavor to maintain a good balance between mental health and physical health. Thank you. I'm going to
Thank you so much, Dr. Sheila Clements. I would say that was very enlightening, and that the exercise is very calming, and we have really appreciated the insight that you put and your experience that you poured out into us through this speech. I would like to tell the participants that they can reach out to the speaker either via the feedback form by posting any queries if they have, or through the email that is attached to the feedback form that we will be providing shortly. We also have a question, ma'am. Can I read it out?
Yes.
Due to lockdown and excess free time, there is an urge to do a lot of things and failing to do so. How to handle it?
Due to lockdown and excess free time, there's an urge to do a lot of things and failing to do so. How to handle that? Yes, there is a lot of excess time. You'll have to choose very wisely. What is it that you want to do? Remember, I said earlier make a routine, set a goal. So this would be your goal, that amongst all the things that are available to me, this is what I want to do. Then make a plan for it. This is how I will do it. Find somebody to whom you can be accountable to and say, look, help me, because I'm not able to do it as well as I would like to. So you help me, keep me accountable. And then again, remember what I said about you may fail, you may not be able to go and achieve it right away. So you'll go like this. When you fall, you're not able to do it, don't be hard on yourself. Just say, it's all right, it was just one of those days. Let me try again. Set reminders, tell your friends to encourage you. That's how you will be able to do it. But do not criticize yourself. There's enough going on to put us down. We don't need to put ourselves down any further. Okay?
Thank you so much, ma'am. I'd now like to hand the mic over to our class counselor, Dr. Geeta, for the vote of thanks.
Ma'am, very good evening. I am Dr. H. Geeta, counselor for First Biotech, and I am the professor in the Department of Mathematics, St. Joseph's College of Engineering. It's a very pleasure for me to give a vote of thanks to you. Actually, Pratana was telling more about you, and we are very much happy to have such a great person in this program. And this is the second such session conducted by the biotech students. And I'm very much grateful to you, ma'am. And I have to thank my students also for their efforts. And you have given plenty of tips how to thrive in this pandemic situation, as well as how to overcome the taboos. That helps us also, being a faculty every time busy with learning so many aspects like that. And I wish to thank you on behalf of St. Joseph's College of Engineering, St. Joseph's Group of Institutions, as well as on behalf of Department of Mathematics. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much. And I like to have you in person for a day to our campus. I hope that will happen. Okay. I welcome you again on behalf of our students as well as on my own behalf. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you.
I would like to thank everybody who has attended this webinar, who has taken the time out to attend and to pay attention. I also thank our staff, our counselors, our HOD, our principal, Dr. Vaddi Sheshagiri Rao, and our chairman, Dr. Babu Manohar. I thank all of these people very much for giving us the idea of doing this and helping us execute the idea. And I would like to extend my gratitude especially to our speaker today, Dr. Sheila Clements, ma'am, for taking time out. And I'm saying this again, but thank you so much for taking time out, and thank you so much for giving us your valued knowledge. Thank you so much. Another notification for the participants. We will now be posting the feedback link in the comment section. Please click on it and fill out the feedback form, and so that you can get your e-certificate. Thank you very much.
Pratana?
Yes, ma'am.
Even staff can do that?
Yes,
Form?
ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay, fine.